somewhere inside Ukraine's military infrastructure, a force that did not exist 2 years ago is conducting 11,000 combat missions in a single day. It has no barracks, no battalions marching in formation, no generals pinning medals on young soldiers before sending them to die. It is an army of machines, and in March 2026, it destroyed 150,000 verified Russian targets in 31 days. The men who built it did not come from military academies. They came from tech startups, engineering labs, and basement workshops. This is the story of how Ukraine engineered the most decisive technological advantage of the 21st century, and why Russia, with all its resources, cannot build anything to stop it. Before this war, Ukraine had no meaningful drone industry. What it had was a generation of engineers raised in a culture that rewarded improvisation over hierarchy, invention over obedience. When Putin launched his invasion, that culture became a weapon. Within months, volunteer teams were strapping commercial cameras to off-the-shelf quadcopters and flying them over Russian positions. It was crude. It was desperate. It worked. But what Ukraine has built since then is something else entirely. A three-layered strike architecture that covers every kilometer of the battlefield, from the trenches to targets deep inside Russia itself. The first layer is the one the world already knows. First-person view drones, small, fast, cheap, and lethal, dominate the contact line in a kill zone stretching roughly 20 kilometers from Ukrainian positions. Russian soldiers have learned to fear the sound they make. But FPV drones have a limitation. Their range caps out. Beyond that 20-kilometer perimeter, Russian forces once operated with relative safety, staging troops, storing ammunition, coordinating attacks from command posts that Ukrainian artillery could not reach and FPV drones could not find. That gap was Russia's lifeline. Ukraine has now closed it. The second layer is the mid-range strike platform, and it is the innovation that has changed the war. These drones operate in the critical corridor between 20 and roughly 150 kilometers behind the front, the near rear, where Russia parks its logistics. In January 2026, Ukraine launched 41 mid-range strikes into this zone. In February, the number rose to 61. By March, it had reached 115. Those strikes have not been random. They have been surgical. Oleksandr Syrsky, commander-in-chief of Ukraine's armed forces, confirmed the damage. 143 Russian warehouses and logistics facilities destroyed. 52 command posts eliminated. 20 oil, gas, and energy sites burning. Russia's ability to supply its front lines, coordinate its units, and launch offensives from depth is being dismantled piece by piece. The third layer reaches even further. Ukraine's long-range drones travel 300 kilometers or more, striking targets deep inside Russia, including, in late March and early April, Russia's two main Baltic ports. Those strikes forced both facilities to shut down, costing the Kremlin an estimated $1 billion in oil revenue that surging prices from Operation Epic Fury in Iran should have delivered straight into Putin's war chest. The money never arrived. The ports went dark, and Ukraine's three-layered architecture, FPV on the line, mid-range in the rear, long-range into Russia itself, was complete. Quick note, you're watching Defense Wire. If you haven't subscribed yet, now's the time. But building the drones was only half the problem. The other half was figuring out how to get them through Russia's air defenses. This is where Ukraine's tactical ingenuity becomes most apparent. According to the Institute for the Study of War, Ukraine's recent successes trace back to a deliberate campaign against Russian air defense systems. By targeting and destroying the radar installations and missile batteries that protected Russia's near rear, Ukraine carved open safe aerial corridors, highways in the sky through which its mid-range drones could fly uncontested. It was not brute force. It was sequenced destruction. Take out the eyes first, then send in the strike. The Atlantic Council confirmed what this sequencing achieved. After years of tit-for-tat fighting on the drone front, Ukraine has definitively pulled ahead. The gap is no longer narrow. It is a gulf. And it is widening every month because Ukraine's innovation cycle moves faster than Russia's procurement cycle. By the time Moscow identifies a Ukrainian capability, reverse engineers a response, and pushes it through the bureaucratic machinery of Russia's defense industry, Ukraine has already moved on to the next generation. Andrei Belousov, Russia's defense minister, confirmed this in stark terms. According to RBC Ukraine, Belousov told Putin in early April that Ukraine has deployed a new generation of equipment unlike anything Russia has encountered. Russia is, in Belousov's own assessment, largely unprepared to deal with these systems. The man Putin appointed to solve the drone problem is admitting that the problem has outrun his ability to fix it. Belousov is not the only one sounding the alarm. Alexei Chadayev, who heads the Ushkuinik facility responsible for much of Russia's drone development, has publicly blamed Russia's feudal social structure for killing the innovation that could close the gap. Russia has built a system that punishes creative thinking, Chadayev argues, and that system is now losing a war to a country that rewards it. But Ukraine's story is not exceptional. It is the rule of what happens when technological agility meets institutional rigidity on a modern battlefield. The pattern has repeated across every domain of this war. Ukraine builds faster, iterates faster, deploys faster. Russia manufactures in volume but adapts in slow motion. The result is a force that produces quantity against an adversary that produces capability, and capability is winning. Nowhere is this clearer than on the defensive side of Ukraine's drone architecture. Russia's Shahed drone campaign, designed to shatter Ukrainian infrastructure, terrorize civilians, and weaken the country's ability to sustain its front, is collapsing. In January, Ukrainian Interceptor drones took out 2,975 Russian attack drones. February saw that number climb to 3,679. Then March arrived. Ukraine destroyed 7,674 Russian drones before they could reach their targets, more than double February's figure. These interceptor drones are cheap, effective, and scalable. They are doing to Russia's air campaign what mid-range strikes are doing to Russia's ground logistics. They're closing every door. The numbers tell the rest. In March 2026, Russia's monthly casualty rate surged 29% to 35,1, a record. 96% of those casualties were caused by drones. On March 17th, Russia lost 1,710 soldiers in a single day, another record. United 24 Media reported on March 25th that Ukraine had wiped out an entire week's worth of Russian recruits in just 3 days. The spring offensive that was supposed to demonstrate Russian power has instead become the most efficient killing field Ukraine has ever constructed. And it was built not by generals or politicians, but by engineers. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky confirmed the scale of the shift on April 3rd. Intelligence from British sources, including an MI6 assessment, showed that the frontline situation is the best it has been for Ukraine in 10 months. Robert Fox, defense editor at The Standard, corroborated this on April 9th, noting that Ukraine's deep strikes are causing real damage inside Russia. Damage that is making Russian newspapers, even as Putin refuses to acknowledge it. What Ukraine has built is not just a weapons system. It is a doctrine, a new way of fighting that treats the battlefield as a software problem. Iterate, deploy, measure, improve, repeat. Every month, the drones get smarter, the corridors get wider, and Russia's ability to respond shrinks. The question is no longer whether Ukraine's drone advantage is real. The question is whether any conventional army in the world is prepared for what comes next. If this war has proven anything, it is that the future of combat does not belong to the country with the most soldiers. It belongs to the country with the fastest engineers. To understand how Russia's own leadership is fracturing under the weight of this technological defeat, check out our deep dive into the Kremlin's internal crisis. And if you want to see where Ukraine's drone doctrine goes from here, our breakdown of the next generation of unmanned systems will show you what is already being tested on the front. Subscribe to Defense Wire so you never miss what comes next.